My husband insisted we take separate cars to his parents' anniversary party. On the way there my son showed me something that changed everything. He kissed me like he always did. Mechanical, precise, a habit with no hunger behind it. Then he turned away, adjusting his tie in the hallway mirror with that distant look he thought I didn't notice. We'll take separate cars. In case you want to leave early, he said, casual. Too casual. I didn't argue. I just nodded. That's what he expected. I buckled our daughter Lily into the passenger seat of my Honda Accord. She looked at me in that quiet way she always did, studying my face the way kids study the sky before a storm. We pulled out of the driveway in suburban Denver. He was already gone in his black Silverado. The drive to his parents' house in Littleton should have been peaceful. The October afternoon painted the Rocky Mountain foothills in brilliant gold, but something felt wrong. The silence between us had grown thicker over the past months, like fog rolling in before you realize you can't see the road anymore. Halfway through the drive, Lily leaned in close. Her voice was barely a whisper, the kind children use when they know something is wrong but don't know how to say it out loud. Mom, Dad doesn't know I found this. She opened her small fist. A hotel key card. White plastic. Room number 142 scrolled across it in blue ink. Beneath that, a name, Rebecca. My heart stopped, but my hand stayed steady on the steering wheel. I took it from her, my fingers barely trembling. Where did you find this, sweetheart? It fell out of Dad's jacket pocket when I was getting my Nintendo from the closet. I gave her a smile that felt like a lie and took the next exit. I think I need to make a quick stop, I said. She didn't argue. Smart kid. She gets that intuition from me. The Hampton Inn was nothing special, clean, anonymous, the kind of place where business travelers disappear into identical rooms. I parked around the back and left the engine running. Stay here, honey. I'll be right back. She nodded, clutching her stuffed elephant. The elevator smelled like industrial carpet cleaner and broken promises. I stood still inside it, watching the red numbers tick up like a countdown to my life falling apart. Second floor, left turn, room 142. I knocked once. Silence. Then footsteps, hesitant. The door opened 2 inches, then stopped. A woman stood there, blonde, mid-30s, wearing a hotel bathrobe. Behind her, I caught a glimpse of scattered clothes and the unmistakable scent of my husband's cologne. She looked at me like I was nobody, just housekeeping or maybe the wrong room. Then she saw my eyes and her face went white. Is David here? I asked quietly. From somewhere in the room, I heard the shower running. Steam drifted from what must have been the bathroom. She started to close the door, but I placed my palm against it, not pushing, just present. I'm Eleanor, his wife. The color drained from her face completely. He said you were separated. Of course he did. We're not. She closed the door slowly. I let her. I didn't knock again. I didn't need to. I already knew enough. Walking back to the car felt like moving through water. Each step deliberate, measured. Lily looked up when I slid back into the driver's seat. Everything okay, Mom? Just had to check on something. I started the engine. How about we skip Grandma and Grandpa's party? Want to go get some ice cream instead? Her face lit up, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in weeks. We drove to Baskin-Robbins, and I watched her eat mint chocolate chip while my world quietly rearranged itself around the truth I'd been avoiding for months. That night, David came home late, full of apologies about work running over. He kissed my forehead and asked how the party was. I told him it was lovely, that his mother looked beautiful, that his father's speech was touching. All lies delivered with the same mechanical precision he'd been giving me for years. The next morning, I made David's coffee exactly how he liked it, 2 sugars, splash of cream. I watched him scroll through his phone at the breakfast table, noting how he angled the screen away from me, how his thumb moved to minimize windows when I walked past. After he left for his accounting firm downtown, I sat in our kitchen in Highlands Ranch and stared at that hotel keycard. Rebecca. The name felt foreign in my mouth, like speaking a language I'd never learned. I'd suspected for months. The late meetings that seemed to multiply. The way he'd started showering immediately when he came home. The distance in his eyes when he looked at me, like he was seeing through me to somewhere else entirely. But suspecting and knowing are different countries entirely. I made a decision that would have shocked the woman I was a year ago. I called in sick to my job at the elementary school and drove to David's office. I'd never done this before, never shown up unannounced. But then again, I'd never had evidence of my husband's affair tucked in my purse either. The receptionist, a young woman named Amanda, smiled brightly. "Mrs. Thompson. David didn't mention you were coming by." "Surprise visit," I said, matching her cheerfulness. "Is he in?" "He's actually at a client meeting across town. Should be back around 3 o'clock. It was barely noon. I thanked her and left, but instead of going home, I drove to the coffee shop across the street and waited. At 12:47, David Silverdew pulled out of the parking garage. I followed. He didn't go to any client meeting. He drove straight to Cherry Creek Mall, parked, and walked into Nordstrom. 20 minutes later, he emerged with a small bag, the kind that holds jewelry or perfume. Something expensive. Something that definitely wasn't for me, considering our anniversary had passed 3 months ago without so much as a card. Following your own husband feels like learning to breathe underwater. Every instinct screams that this is wrong, that marriages shouldn't require surveillance. But every mile I drove behind him, every lie I watched him construct, convinced me that wrong had become our new normal long before I started paying attention. That evening, I cooked David's favorite meal, pot roast with mashed potatoes and green beans, the same dinner his mother made every Sunday when we were dating. I set the table with our wedding china, lit the candles we'd received as a housewarming gift 8 years ago, and opened a bottle of the Pinot Noir we'd been saving for a special occasion. David walked in at 7:30, stopped in the doorway of our dining room, and looked genuinely surprised. "What's all this for? Do I need a reason to make dinner for my husband?" Something flickered across his face, guilt, maybe, or fear. But he sat down, complimented the roast, asked about my day at school. I told him about the third graders' art project, how little Tommy Morrison had painted a picture of his family that included 3 dogs, they only had one, how cute it was. Normal conversation. Normal evening. Normal marriage. Except for the hotel key card in my pocket. After dessert, apple pie from the bakery on Main Street that he loved, I reached into my cardigan and placed the key card next to his coffee cup. No words. No accusations. Just white plastic against dark wood. David's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. The bite of pie fell back onto his plate. He stared at the card like it might disappear if he looked hard enough, and I watched 20 years of marriage crumble in real time. "Where did you find this?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "Does it matter?" He reached for my hand across the table. I pulled it back, not dramatically, just a simple withdrawal. The absence of my touch seemed to hit him harder than any slap. "Eleanor, I can explain." I nodded. Not agreement, not permission, just acknowledgement that he'd spoken. "It's not what you think." "What do I think, David?" The question hung in the air between us like smoke. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No sound came out. "Her name is Rebecca," I said finally. "Room 142. Hampton Inn on Colorado Boulevard. You bought her something expensive today at Nordstrom." His face went gray. "You followed me." I didn't have to follow far. David stood up abruptly, pacing to the window that overlooked our backyard where Lily's swing set stood empty in the gathering dusk. "You don't understand. This marriage, we've been like strangers for years. So you found someone who makes you feel less strange." He turned back to me, and for the first time in months, I saw real emotion in his eyes. Pain, yes, but also something that looked like relief. "Rebecca understands me. She listens when I talk. She doesn't look at me like I'm just another item on her to-do list." The accusation stung because it held a grain of truth. Somewhere between Lily's soccer practices and parent-teacher conferences, between my job and his career, between maintaining a house and managing a life, we'd stopped seeing each other as people worth knowing. But I'd never sought comfort in someone else's arms. "How long?" I asked. 6 months. "Where did you meet her?" "The quarterly conference in Boulder. She works for one of our client companies." He sat back down, pushed his plate away. "It wasn't supposed to happen, Eleanor. It just did." I almost laughed. As if infidelity was weather, something that just happened to you like rain or snow. "Do you love her?" The question surprised us both. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. I don't know, he said finally. But I know I feel alive when I'm with her. I know I look forward to her texts. I know I've been pretending with you for so long that I forgot what it felt like to not pretend. The honesty was devastating and oddly refreshing. At least now we were talking about real things instead of grocery lists and utility bills. What do you want, David? I want to not hurt you anymore. That's not an answer. He looked down at his hands, at the wedding ring he still wore. I want a divorce. The words fell between us like stones into still water. I felt something inside me break, not my heart, exactly, but something structural. The framework that had held my life in a particular shape for 20 years. Okay, I said. He looked up, startled. Okay. I won't fight you on it. But I have conditions. We sat in our dining room until nearly midnight, dividing up a life like accountants balancing books. The house would be sold. I'd take half the proceeds and find something smaller for Lily and me. David would move in with Rebecca. Yes, she knew about me now, and apparently had for weeks. Child support, custody arrangements, who gets the wedding china we'd never really liked anyway. The mundane details of dissolution, as if love could be itemized and split down the middle. I want primary custody of Lily, I said. David nodded immediately. That makes sense. You're better with her than I am. Better. As if parenting was a skill set rather than a calling. But I didn't argue. I wanted my daughter with me. I'll need to tell her, I continued. But not yet. Let me figure out how. When? After the holidays. No point in ruining Christmas. We were being so civilized, so rational. Two adults making mature decisions about an unfortunate situation. But underneath the politeness, I felt something else growing. Not anger, exactly, but a kind of fierce clarity. For years, I'd been trying to be the wife David wanted, molding myself around his moods and needs and silences. I'd made myself smaller to fit into the space he'd left for me in his life. Now, suddenly, I was expanding back to my full size. There's something else, I said as we prepared to go upstairs to what would be one of our last nights sharing a bed. I want the cabin. David stopped. Eleanor, that cabin's been in my family for 3 generations. And I've spent every summer for the past 12 years painting its shutters, planting its garden, and making memories with your daughter in its rooms. I want the cabin. He started to protest, but something in my voice stopped him. Maybe he heard the woman I used to be before I became his wife, before I learned to bend myself around his expectations. Fine, he said. You can have the cabin. That night, we lay in our king-size bed like travelers in a hotel, careful not to let any part of our bodies touch. I listened to David's breathing change as he fell asleep, and I realized I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Not happiness, that would come later, if at all. But peace. The exhausting work of trying to save something that had already died was finally over. 3 months later, I stood in the doorway of my new townhouse in Centennial, watching Lily arrange her stuffed animals on her new bed. She'd taken the divorce better than I'd expected, with the resilience that children somehow summon when adults' worlds fall apart. Mom, can Rebecca come to my birthday party? The question caught me off guard. Do you want her to? Lily shrugged with 8-year-old pragmatism. Dad's happy when she's around. He smiles more. Out of the mouths of babes. If you want her there, then yes. David had been right about one thing. Rebecca did make him come alive. I'd seen them together at Lily's school concert last week, the way he looked at her, the way he touched her arm when she laughed. It was how he used to look at me, before familiarity bred not contempt but indifference. I wasn't jealous anymore. I was grateful. Rebecca had done us both a favor by making the end undeniable. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister in Portland. How are you holding up? Better than expected, I typed back. And it was true. The woman who had followed her husband to that hotel room 6 months ago had been terrified of being alone. The woman I was now understood that being alone and being lonely were different things entirely. I'd been lonely for years while married. Now I was alone but not lonely, free to remember who I was when I wasn't trying to be half of something that had stopped working. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my small patio, watching the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold. Tomorrow I'd drive up to the cabin, my cabin now, and spend the weekend opening windows, airing out rooms, planning the garden I'd plant come spring. Lily came outside and curled up next to me on the patio chair, too big for it but still small enough to fit. "Are you sad about Dad?" she asked. I considered the question seriously. "I'm sad about some things ending. But I'm not sad about some things beginning." She nodded as if this made perfect sense. "Like our new house. Like our new house. And like how you laugh more now." That stopped me. "Do I?" "Uh-huh. You used to laugh like you were remembering something funny. Now you laugh like something actually is funny." I hugged her closer, breathing in the scent of her shampoo and the promise of spring in the cooling air. My marriage was over, but my life, the real one, the one where I got to be fully myself, was just beginning. David had insisted we take separate cars that day, thinking he was protecting his secret. Instead, he'd given me the freedom to discover not just his betrayal, but my own strength. Some wrong turns, it seemed, led you exactly where you needed to be. The key card that had revealed everything was still in my jewelry box upstairs, not as a reminder of betrayal but as a symbol of the moment I stopped accepting less than I deserved. I never looked back. Because finality, I'd learned, isn't loud. It's a closed door that no longer needs a lock. And on this side of that door, I was finally, completely, authentically home.